Well, the coronavirus has taken hold of the world and everyone is locked inside. And well, I need something to do. With no films being released, I thought, why don't I talk about a program which I actually really enjoyed? And with Disney Plus being advertised now in the UK and ready for streaming, this show has come back into the public eye. And that is The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is the story of a Mandalorian bounty hunter named Mando. You may remember the Mandalorians from the Clone Wars and when Darth Maul ruled over them. In this series set between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens sees Mando take on various bounty hunter work to support the various other Mandalorians who have gone underground after the Empire decimated their population. Of course, we all know the Mandalorian's major story point is Baby Yoda, perhaps the cutest thing to be put on screen since Baby Groot. But in this video, I don't want to focus on the Baby Yoda and its cuteness, and I just want to focus on the series and my thoughts in general, and whether you should actually watch this show. So firstly, I'll answer that question. The Mandalorian, for me, is hands down the best Star Wars media that Disney have released since buying the Lucasfilm rights. The Mandalorian is, for me, exactly the Star Wars story we needed. Star Wars is becoming far too bogged down in family and destiny storylines instead of simply breaking away and trying to tell separate, contained stories. The Mandalorian isn't some special guy. He isn't Obi-Wan's son or
Hello there.
Or Anakin's best friend. He is just some guy who is an amazing bounty hunter. Sure, he has a troubled past, but that backstory could have easily included one of the main Star Wars characters, but it didn't. And for me, that was a major relief when watching this program, that a main Star Wars character was not shoehorned some way into the plot of The Mandalorian. This is something I have really hated about Star Wars of late. Everyone has a destiny and everyone is connected to the main characters. Rey couldn't just be a great powerful Jedi. No, she had to be Palpatine's granddaughter. Oh, spoiler if you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker, but yeah, she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Even Finn couldn't just be a good guy who defected from the Empire. No, he has the Force. That's how you know he's a top bloke, because if someone's got the Force, they know to go to the good side. Well, why didn't he turn to the dark side if the dark side surrounded the Empire? It's just these things that kind of annoy me about the new Star Wars films and even the prequels. But thankfully, The Mandalorian operates completely separate to the wider goings on of the Star Wars galaxy and simply tells a story held within itself, instead of shoehorning in random links to bigger, more popular characters. I wanted Disney to try and introduce some memorable characters that are separate from the original trilogy's characters. They tried with Rogue One, and whilst the characters are fine, they're not memorable. But with Mando and QL, they have finally achieved some memorable Star Wars characters of their own creation who can hold together a show of their own. Each episode is an entirely different story, instead of leading off where the last episode left us. Instead, the Mandalorian jumps around from planet to planet, acquiring different bounties to get by whilst protecting the Baby Yoda. For me, this is the series' biggest strength and weakness. On the one hand, being able to jump from set piece to set piece allowed for far more creative stories to be told in the Star Wars universe that we hadn't seen before. A particular highlight for me was The Prisoner and this fantastic scene. It gave a horror suspense feel to the story, and it was a type of storytelling we hadn't seen in Star Wars before. And I've always been a massive advocate that the Star Wars universe can work in basically any genre, not just the sci-fi adventure genre. However, this constant jump between locations and single stories does harm the development of our main character and the building of any backstory and development regarding Baby Yoda, who from episode 1 to the finale we learn virtually nothing about. It is a shame and does hamper the flow of the story, as we pick up where we left off in episode 1, with the final 2 episodes with basically just separate adventures happening in between them. It's a small problem I have with the show though. As I previously mentioned, this is exactly the Star Wars story needed because it is so different and separate to the wider Star Wars universe. The Empire is but a meagre presence in the universe after the defeat on Endor and have been relegated to essentially working in the shadows. It's an interesting aspect to see the dominant force of the original trilogy to be just a mere presence now, as they try to cling on to any control that might still have within the galaxy. And for me, this is what the sequel trilogy should have been, the Empire fighting to regain control. However, we have it here with The Mandalorian, and I love it. Maybe Baby Yoda will be the key to the Empire's return to power, who knows. The Mandalorian has an interesting theme throughout with its nature versus nurture themes. This is exemplified in the fact of Mando's mistrust of droids, and when QL is able to reprogram a bounty hunter droid, played excellently by Taika Waititi, to be essentially a nanny. Mando is still unable to trust the droid and believes killing is simply within its nature, whilst QL argues the point that he has nurtured the droid to be non-violent and to now only care, a point Mando does not believe will truly change the nature of the droid. It's a great thing to have in a show where your main has adopted a newborn and works in an extremely violent profession, and it begs the question, will the baby Yoda see these horrific acts of killing around him and become a violent adult, or is it just within his nature to be good? The series is simply fantastic throughout. There's great special effects and acting, it has fantastic characters which Disney have finally been able to create, and I think it truly reinvigorates people's love for Star Wars. I know it did for me, and I mean, I watched the first 2 episodes, then saw Rise of Skywalker and felt very down about Star Wars, but I carried on with The Mandalorian, and I remembered why I love Star Wars so much. The Mandalorian has sort of a western feel to it. It's a really incredible TV show. It does have its flaws, these are minor. The show is fantastic throughout, and I truly recommend anyone in the UK watching it for the first time to definitely watch it all the way through, because I feel from episode 1 the show only gets better, and the best episode is yet to come, The Prisoner, which I think was just fantastic creative storytelling that we haven't seen in Star Wars before. So there you have it, there's my review of The Mandalorian. I didn't really want to give anything away because obviously I'm from the UK and I don't want to tell my UK viewers what happens in this story. I just want to give a general feel that this is very old school Star Wars and will definitely reinvigorate your love for Star Wars. It's a fantastic show, and that's kind of it. That's just my little short burst review I wanted to give on The Mandalorian because it's a show I really fell in love with. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.